This morning, provocative new ads from the city of Dallas warning against opioids and fentanyl, just as the city is seeing a surge in overdoses. Councilwoman Paula Blackman shares a personal story on why she pushed for this campaign. Almost a year after Uvalde, Texas lawmakers this week will finally start debating school security. But will any of it prevent another tragedy? State Rep Dustin Burrows takes our questions on his priority legislation and reveals a carve-out on another bill that he quietly agreed to. A renewed push to stop discrimination over hairstyles. State Rep Retta Bowers on one small change in the language of the bill this year. And new reporting from the Texas Tribune reveals that police in Uvalde were afraid of the powerful rifle carried by the school shooter, even though many police officers there were carrying almost the same thing.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
I'm Jason Whiteley. It is already a busy weekend here this Sunday, so let's begin with some of the headlines that you might have missed across the state. Casino gambling is getting some more traction in Austin this legislative session. You know, for the first time, Governor Greg Abbott and House Speaker Dade Phelan say they are open to the idea. The legislation calls for 8 big resorts across the state with casino gambling. But here's something else to keep an eye on. Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban has said he wants to build a brand new basketball arena tied to one of those resorts. The State Affairs Committee in the House has yet to approve this, though. Some property tax relief is now a step closer to becoming reality. The state Senate passed Senate Bill 3 last week. It increases the residential homestead exemption from $40,000 a year to $70,000 a year. One note here, though, this was a unanimous vote. The House gets it next, and voters would have to approve it in November. But here's what it means. On average, it will save Texas homeowners about $341 a year. And one of the biggest problems that Texas faces long-term is water, having enough of it for the state to keep growing. The state Senate created a brand new fund. It's supposed to pay for new reservoirs, to upgrade infrastructure, and buy water from other states if necessary. This is going to cost billions of dollars in the future, but there are no firm costs on that yet. Tomorrow afternoon, school security finally comes up for debate at the state capitol. You know, May marks 1 year since the massacre in Uvalde. Governor Greg Abbott refused to call a special session to address it last summer, and many are waiting to see what state lawmakers might do, if anything, tangible to prevent another shooting. Chairman Dustin Burrows, a Republican from Lubbock, led the House investigation into what happened in Uvalde last May, and he is behind one of the high-priority bills up for debate tomorrow afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, welcome to the program here. We appreciate you joining us. Your bill, HB 3, would require school districts to have at least one armed school resource officer at every campus in their district. In Uvalde, though, people hear this and they were like, well, there were 376 officers that were finally arrived to the campus there at Robb Elementary. They remember Santa Fe had 2 police officers. Parkland, Florida had a police officer. None of these seem to stop the bloodshed that happened there. How will HB 3, do you think, actually prevent another Uvalde or a Santa Fe?
Yeah, so first off, we actually asked the Board of Trustees to determine the right and appropriate number of people that they're going to have there as security officers. And I would remind everybody, this is what we do at airports, this is what we do at courthouses. This is how we historically protect, those places where we have valuable people, and we need to make sure that they're there. I believe it is a deterrent. I think just getting the word out may be a deterrent to people wanting to potentially attack places. And then having somebody there, potentially in the hall to neutralize somebody before they can barricade themselves into a classroom or get through a door is very, very important. Ideally, every school district would not have just one person, but 2 people. And I won't be able to get into it probably in this segment. If you watch the hallway video, I do think if maybe at least one of those officers had some backup at the individual while he's kind of belly crawling down, I think maybe, I think it's very important for one of these officers to have backup. So hopefully each have 2.
Mr. Chairman, let's talk about how you're going to pay for this if this passes. In the bill, the state will give districts $10 for every student to help pay for this, plus $15,000 per campus, if I'm reading this right. Is that correct?
That is where this particular allocation is going to be for school safety.
And just to help me with the math here, like Dallas ISD, for example, has 153,000 students. Times 10 for $10 for every student, that's 1.5 million, 230 campuses.
times 15,000 is $3.5 million. If Dallas hired cops at $50,000 a year, your bill is only going to get the district halfway there with hiring the number of police officers that they need. Who would make up for the remaining amount that's needed to hire the remaining 116 officers? Is that local taxpayers or some other grant?
Yeah, so first off, the bill does not prescribe the way they can fulfill having a security officer on campus. It gives them a variety of ways. They can hire their own ISD police force. They can contract with, outsource. They can also go through the Guardian or Marshal program where they actually find somebody who's an existing personnel and put them through highly specialized training to make sure they're there and available. So, you've got to kind of look at the broad spectrum of options that are being made available, to these campuses and then take a look at how that's actually going to be done.
You mentioned the number of failures that happened there that day. Of course, there were 91 state troopers that responded there in Uvalde. DPS ended its investigation last month. It only, I think, took action against 3 or 4 troopers of the 91 who were there. Do you still have confidence in DPS Director Steve McCraw?
I think he's done a very good job in many different, opportunities. And certainly I would not sit here and say that I have, anything that I would distract from what job that he's doing.
A few quick questions on another bill you have. It's House Bill 2127. It says that local governments cannot regulate things that the state already handles. This has gotten a lot of pushback in its recent hearing. I was reading through the record there too. A lot of folks from nonprofits, from churches and other organizations are concerned specifically about payday lenders and predatory lenders. The state, as you know, Mr. Chairman, has not reined them in over multiple sessions, over multiple years. But 49 cities have created regulations, as you know. This would wipe those out if this is passed. Would you consider creating a carve out to keep those payday lending local regulations in?
Well, I've already agreed to that. So I'm glad to get to visit with you. I've actually talked to those groups after the hearing, and we basically said those 49 that are in existence will be grandfathered in under this. The scope of the bill is really to protect small businesses who had a variety of complaints, and they made their voices heard at that hearing. So with respect to the payday or predatory lending, we're already working on a grandfather clause that will be in a new committee substitute to make sure that we're not having a conversation that I think distracts from the greater good that this bill does.
Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to some great reporting from the Texas Tribune. New documents reviewed by the Tribune show that a main reason that dozens of police waited so long to confront that school shooter in Uvalde is that they were afraid of his powerful rifle. Remember, there were 376 cops there on scene last May. Many of them had the same kind of firepower that the shooter did. Matthew Watkins is the managing editor for news and politics at the Texas Tribune. Matthew, it's good to see you again. Do you expect this new reporting by your team and by Zach, the reporter who was on it, will this have any impact with state lawmakers as they begin this week to debate school security?
Well, it definitely got the attention of lawmakers. We heard a lot of conversation around it, particularly among folks who are interested in raising the age to buy an AR-15 from 18 to 21. Whether it will change what they actually do this session, I think is a little bit more of a question, right? There is, of course, a very strong gun rights support among leadership in the legislature. And I think it would take a whole lot, probably beyond what we even learned this week, to change their opinion on that. The idea of raising that purchase age has been sort of a non-starter during the legislative session. I don't think we've seen any indication this week that has changed.
Yeah, but at the very least, I'm thinking, because it's a great piece, Matthew, but this should have some impact on police accountability.
Right. I mean, one of the things that we've heard in the aftermath of this shooting is that, why didn't the police go in there? Was it the police chief's fault? Was it the fault of the training and everything like that? And what this story, what the information we saw really showed was that a very big reason for that was the gun, that this was such a powerful weapon that could pierce walls, could pierce body armor, that really caused the hesitation. And what we've also seen is that's happened in other shootings. We saw similar instances like that in Parkland in Florida, in the Columbine shooting and things like that. So I think it's something you have to take into consideration when you think about the protocols for when you respond to an incident like this. All
right, Matthew, it's a great piece. Our viewers can take a look at it at texastribune.com. Matthew, back to you in a moment. Coming up here next, a surge in opioid overdoses in Dallas last week has the city now rolling out a brand new provocative ad campaign to warn parents and children. Councilwoman Paula Blackman, one of those behind it, she joins us with a personal story. And a renewed push to prevent people from being discriminated against because of their hairstyle. State Rep Retta Bowers, one of those making this small change in language on the bill, trying to get it passed. We'll speak with her when Inside Texas Politics returns. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. Dallas trying to figure out why it is seeing a surge in opioid overdoses right now. First responders normally get a half dozen calls a day. Last week, though, they got 27 in a single day. This news happening as the city rolls out a provocative new series of ads. These are designed to display the deadly dangers that come with opioids and fentanyl. These spots are the product of an opioid response strike force at Dallas City Hall. And the co-chair is Paula Blackman, a Dallas City councilwoman who is also a mother of 3 boys.
Councilwoman, thanks for being on the program here. You led the creation of this Dallas task force. It's now revealing this new phase, this outreach campaign. What exactly are we talking about here? Is it ads that will be coming out soon from the city of Dallas and other stakeholders? And I guess more importantly, who is it aimed at?
So what we've decided as a city and what we've seen is that we have a fragmented approach to the fentanyl crisis. We have groups, DEA enforcement doing one thing. We have school districts trying to educate parents and teachers. And I've got 3 boys that I'm having these conversations with, that I get information from saying, another one of my friends has passed because of a fentanyl Percocet, or I get a email from our DPD that shows an address that I'm quite aware of, and it's my son's friend who has been poisoned. And this happened a year ago. And after I started looking into this, I realized we do not have a focused approach of bringing individuals, in county, state, school districts together to really look at how are we going to communicate with parents? How are we going to communicate with students? How are we going to communicate with our youngsters? Because the just say no approach doesn't work.
Well, let me ask you about that. Yeah, the just say no approach has been out for more than 40 years.
Right.
That has failed. The war on drugs seems to have failed too, considering what's going on at the border. How do you make
education is key on this.
Well, how do you make sure you get this education in front of the eyeballs who need to see it?
So just this afternoon, I was talking to DISD. We're going to bring families together and have a really hard conversation about how to have these hard conversations with our youngsters. We are going to focus on putting up ads. We are going to put it out there everywhere we go, because I do believe that when parents know what outcomes can happen from one pill, they will have these conversations. I trust that. And kiddos need to know that, you may be having a test, but don't take that Adderall that you just got from your Snapchat.
Councilwoman, you have spent time in Austin testifying on this issue. You also support a state plan to map where opioid overdoses are happening across the state. Why is mapping so important, and why can't law enforcement do this already?
Well, because of HIPAA laws, we cannot just give over data. And so what we are trying to do is ask the state to say, yes, we can do this regarding overdoses, because what we can find out is where communities are having those overdoses, and then we can deploy resources there, whether it through be enforcement, whether it through be recovery, education. So what we can do is look at it at real time and say, hey, you know what, we need to do something over here in this part of the county. And then we can deploy that, because time is of the essence.
Councilwoman, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
So where's all the opioids coming from, and how are kids getting it in school? A DEA agent takes us inside this growing problem across Texas, one that lawmakers have made a priority. This is the latest episode of Y'all-itics, available to download this morning wherever you get your podcasts. Right now in Texas, you can discriminate against someone at work or at school over their hairstyle. A Dallas lawmaker tried unsuccessfully to stop that 2 years ago. Right now, she's trying it again. This bill is called the Crown Act, and State Rep Retta Bowers is behind it this time. She is a Dallas Democrat who spoke to us soon after a House committee considered that bill.
Representative Bowers, it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming back on the program here. This bill was left pending in committee. It wasn't voted out like it was 2 years ago. What happened?
You know what? I really think we have full support. I think we'll get a unanimous vote again, but it was just so late. And the committee had been through so many other bills, sports, gaming, what else?
It was a late night, it sounds like.
It actually was. It was a late night. We were all a little bit tired, but you could tell, testimony felt just as powerful. And I felt like everybody was locked in.
Let's talk about what's different this time. The word dreadlocks isn't specifically mentioned in this bill. Did you change the wording of anything in the text?
We really tried our best to make sure that we, just so we had the Crown Coalition in Washington's full support, that we match the federal bill. So it does say locks. And I do think that it is better to use the term locks because it did have somewhat of lend itself to something dreadful when you talked about dreadlocks. And I think respectfully, that is the right term, to just use locks.
You have a companion bill in the state Senate. It is yet to get a hearing there with Senator Miles backing that one. How concerned are you that the clock might run out again and this might not make it to the finish line again? Because we have, 2 months left in the session here.
Correct, but we're ahead of the game. I think you remember that I buzzed you midway through and said, we got a hearing, and it was so late. It was April 29th. We hit March 22nd for a hearing this session, and we're so proud of that. We were ready to send a press release then, but people said, slow your roll, pump the brakes. They told us, don't do it yet. Nothing's really happened yet. So the staff and I here have been really glad with the support we have. And I'll tell you, me, I went straight down to the floor this morning and have been working these votes. And it looks like, majority of the committee actually has already signed on to co-author. So we're looking good. I'm just doing my due diligence to make sure I respectfully give that phone call or tap them and say, hey, I just want to make sure I have your support in your vote for this.
We will be watching. Representative Bowers, thank you so much.
Thank you. Always good to see you. And I know y'all will take care of home until I can get back there.
The Texas Senate and State House have different ideas on how to reduce property taxes. The question is, will they come together or are we headed for a showdown? The roundtable is next. Time now for Reporters Roundtable. To put the headlines in perspective, Matthew is back with us for the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram every week, and Bernadine Steptoe is a political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, let's start with you and education. Lots happening on the education front right now across the state. Last week, 2 school shootings, of course, in the Metroplex area, outrage in Houston over the state takeover down there of Houston ISD, and then hearings in Austin on library books and the voucher plan. Where are voters on all of this?
What's amazing, Jason, is that school board elections traditionally have such a low turnout, although now we've got another one coming up. And for years, people just kind of ignored their school boards. They didn't know who their school trustees were. Now they're suddenly ferociously interested in how public schools are run and the chance for charter schools. What's happening is that Republicans want to win back suburban voters, and so they're stressing everything about education, public and private, and vouchers as a way to get back in suburban doors, to win back suburban voters that they'd lost the last couple of cycles.
And Bernadine, what are Democrats doing to address that?
Well, I think that they're attacking the initiatives and efforts of the Republicans, but I also think that parents are even more concerned because you're seeing so much shooting. You're seeing so many shootings in these districts, and they want to have more of an input on what's going on in their schools, and the Republicans are giving them what they want, and they think that it is the school choices or whatever is going to involve them more.
And Matthew, it seems like Republicans are being successful here, at least on the out front, minus the school shootings, on seeding these future voters.
Yeah, sort of anecdotally, as the parent of 2 school-aged kids, I see there's just been, ever since we kind of got back from the pandemic, a lot of kind of energy, focus, and concern around education. I think the school shootings even added to that a little bit more. And I think what you're seeing from the Republican leadership is a response to that and a feeling that they really see that education, schools are on the minds of a lot of voters right now.
Yeah.
Matthew, let me ask you, the state Senate and state House have different ideas on how to reduce property taxes, which was the main priority that everyone from both parties had as they went to Austin. Do you think we're headed for a showdown, or do you think that both chambers might come together on a single solution?
Well, the Texas Senate passed a very big package this week, a $16 billion package, which included reducing the homestead exemption for all homeowners in Texas. It included even more cuts for seniors, and it included sending a lot of money into school districts that should allow or require schools to reduce their property taxes. The House has some different plans. They want to cap how much your property values, your taxable property values can increase. And that has some opposition in the Senate. So both sides, not necessarily on the same place of how they want to do it, but in agreement on, they want to do something. And that's what these next 2 months are for, to iron out those differences. I think we'll see some tension, but I think there's so much energy around getting something done, something to show the voters that you've done, that we'll see something happen this year on this.
And Bud, I think he's right. Something will get done. What do you expect to see?
Well, the Senate has the more popular political position, giving everybody a little bit more exemption and giving seniors an even bigger exemption. But that creates more inequity. The Senate says the House plan creates inequity, but the Senate plan creates inequity. Why should somebody in Highland Park or River Oaks, because they're over 65, save even more on their taxes than somebody who's under 65 in the rest of Texas?
Bernadine, final word.
Keep in mind, most of your voters, the large block of voters, are senior citizens. And so they will appreciate that homestead exemption. And I think that you're going to see something along that line.
Yeah, something indeed along that line and along all of this, but it'll be fascinating to see how the sausage is made over the next 60 days as the legislature approaches sine die. Guys, thanks a lot. We appreciate it. And thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics and hope to see you then. Take care.